I feel like the world of football has lost something. It's lost the true unknown. And that's why one of the most viewed videos on the Zealand YouTube channel is the Wonder Kid from Nowhere. And the reason that I was so fascinated in that story was because it was a veritable unknown. Like, it was a relative unknown player that managed to vault his way into major European leagues over the course of a year and a half to 2 years. From a trial in Togo to playing in the French league, in the top flight at Lyon for Gift Orban. It's definitely a story that's worth writing about, but I feel like football used to be full of those. The world of football used to be full of those, and I'm a bit sad that I was born and introduced to the game in an era where that sort of thing doesn't happen nearly as much, where somebody could kind of get plucked off the street and then all of a sudden be great. And you'd be surprised how late it happened, because I've discovered this story. It's an old story some of you might know, but if you don't, it is an absolute ride. And thanks to The Guardian for writing a long article about it. Michael Butler did a really good job with this article. It's like part of a 3-part series. If you want, the actual hard journalism and reporting about it, go check that out. If you want some dude with opinions about stuff, just ranting and raving about the Spark Notes, I'm here for you. Maybe I'm just teeing you up for the article, but it's the story of a Scottish midfielder named Paul Lambert. And this happened in 1996. And it absolutely blew my mind. Not only was 1996 the year I was born, where a lot of things were modern. I mean, we didn't have cell phones and stuff necessarily, but the year I was born, my early childhood, there were computers, there was kind of the modern world without social media and the internet as we know it today. But it existed, right? Big TV deals, right? Champions Leagues, World Cups, those are watched all over the world at this point. And they're, this is in the 1950s where, like nobody was, the only account of the game is some written word thing that this guy, right? This isn't that era. This is a modern era of football where your AC Milans and your Inters are dominating discourse, and they've got the best players, and Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson starting to kick into its own, and that's the era. And in walks Paul Lambert, a guy who spends the first half of his career playing for St. Mirren and Motherwell in the Scottish leagues. He's a good player, right? Motherwell ended up finishing second in the 1995 Scottish League season, and he's an important part of that team. They finished ahead of Celtic behind Rangers at the time. And even though he's doing all of that, right? He's playing in the Scottish League. He's competing at a level that's with Rangers and Celtic. He's making £500 a week. And there isn't really a future out there. He doesn't even have like an agent or anything. According to this stuff, he's just kind of playing ball. But as his contract starts to come up, he has a friend that gets in touch with this one kind of fixer agent who managed to get him a contract on the European mainland. I think it was to go to the Netherlands or something. And so as his contract runs out in 1996, Paul Lambert decides to throw in his lot to try and get something better. He does not renew his contract with Motherwell. He doesn't want more of the same. And at this point, he's like 26, 27 years old. Right? This is not some 17, 18-year-old. He's somebody with like 300 league appearances in the Scottish League at this point, right? Going into a bit of the later part of his career. And he goes, I'm trying to play somewhere else. So he turns the contract down, and riddle me this. A top-level professional footballer who's playing in European competition, like Motherwell played against Borussia Dortmund while he was there, right? And he's now having to borrow money from his parents after this contract runs out at Motherwell because he's not able to pay for stuff, right? £500 a week. I mean, you're working with less than £30,000 a year. I mean, it's a solid wage, right? I know wages are a little distorted if you're not from the UK. Like if you're from the United States, less than $30,000 a year sounds low, but pounds obviously carry more and they have more social services. So there's kind of some sort of balance that goes on in there, but it's certainly not a lot of money for somebody that's made over 300 appearances and has caps for the Scottish national team at this point. Granted, just a couple. And he kind of floats over to the European mainland and this really mysterious, kind of weird character. What's his name? Ton van Dalen Ton Van Dalen, not Tom, Ton Van Dalen, right? He says, come to Amsterdam. And then he gets him a trial with PSV, and the trial doesn't go well because the guy tries to play him as a winger. He's like a holding midfielder. But they're looking for a winger. They bring him into trial as a winger, and it doesn't work out. Which, again, another indicate, like, players are pigeonholed in their positions so early in their careers now. And there's so much knowledge and analytical breakdown about where these guys play and how well they play there. Even as recently as 96, I'm sure after that, that's just the story that I found so interesting. You've got clubs going, oh, we need a winger. Oh, you said this guy's good? Yeah, bring him in. Oh, he doesn't play winger. Oh, we'll give it a shot anyways. Fuck it. That's just wild to me. 26, 27 years old, we're going to pop him up at the wing and see if he's able to play there. I don't know. Maybe he can pull it off. Doesn't make the PSV team. It was a good PSV team. Apparently they won the whole Dutch league that year. But then right after he gets rejected from the PSV trial, he gets a trial with Borussia Dortmund. The same Dortmund team that a couple of years ago had played against Paul Lambert while he was playing at Motherwell. And the decision makers at the club remembered him as this Ton Van Dalen guy was shopping him around. And went, oh yeah, is that the guy? We loved his engine. We loved the way he played against us. Yeah, bring him in. And he just shows up at Dortmund, the reigning German champions at the time. And he goes on a trial in a preseason tournament, signs a contract, and is in the opening day's starting 11. Do you know how unbelievably Disney movie that is? You're talking about somebody that like a month earlier was having to borrow money from their parents in the middle of their football career because they'd let their contract expire and they didn't have enough to eat, pay the bills, whatever. And now you're starting for Borussia Dortmund. The only reason he was starting is they had a $7 million signing from Inter who got hurt. I see if I can find the name in here. But he goes to Dortmund, and basically the guy that's supposed to start above him ends up getting hurt. Paulo Sousa. Oh, sorry, Juventus. He was signed from Juventus, who had won the Champions League in 96. And he just starts opening day. And he has a quote-unquote one of those days where everything goes right. He ends up with 2 assists and a 4-0 win, and the fans are singing his name. To me, these types of stories are the magic of sport. And it gets even crazier. I mean, Paul Lambert, with this shot in the arm of going to play at Borussia Dortmund, would this very season become the first British player ever to win the Champions League in a club not in the UK. Ever. Because Dortmund would go on to win the Champions League this season with Lambert as this kind of key force. He would play 1 more year and then move to Celtic and play for 8 more years. Multiple $1 million move to Celtic and a nice big comfy wage outside of that. But this is the pure magic of sport on display right here. To have somebody that is so out of the picture just suddenly emerge and to be able to play for a team like Dortmund. I'm of the opinion, right? And this opinion it's so possible this opinion is wrong, that a lot of great players are missed because people are afraid to give players chances like this. People are afraid to trust their eye, trust their instincts. The safe option is taken just a little too much. You know who didn't take the safe option in this particular scenario? The person that decided to start Paul Lambert in the opening day after Sousa got hurt. That's the person that wasn't afraid of the media repercussions, that wasn't afraid of what other people were going to say, that legitimately thought Paul Lambert was the best choice, and they were fucking right. Because he went on to have a great career and captained Scotland 15 times and just emerged as this force of nature who became a beloved player at Borussia Dortmund over 2 years. But it was just because they had the faith to actually sit down there. This Hitzfeld guy that was making the decisions had the faith to sit down there and go, yeah, I think this guy is good enough, and we're going to put him in there. We've entered into a world where players are so cataloged, and with social media fandoms and everything, that it is, you know, I've said this a lot. When you're looking at transfers, sometimes teams will just sign somebody because they just feel the need to sign somebody, and they want to have that bump, that dopamine hit of signing somebody, and everybody's saying, hey, great signing. Where sometimes if you go out and you sign Moises Caicedo for $5 million, that ends up being the right move. Manchester United decided not to do that. Brighton did it instead, and look what happened. because they were afraid of actually taking the leap and going, yeah, we think that guy could be good enough. All of these clubs wait for all of these players to prove themselves over and over and over again at this level, then that level, then that level, then that level, instead of, the guy's here and you go, damn, yeah, that looks like he could do it. And I mean, that provides an opportunity in the modern game for people that are bold enough to trust their eye, to trust their instincts, to capitalize on people like Moises Caicedo. Brighton and the people running that club, they have that boldness to go out and find players in the Ecuadorian league and say, yeah. I mean, obviously all the higher big brain scouts are saying this kid's going to be really good someday, but we're going to make that jump now. We're going to sign him and bring him in to do this now. And not only are we going to do that, we're going to give him the playing time necessary for him to find himself as well, because we believe that he can do that. 26, 27-year-old Scottish dude who was making 500 pounds a week at Motherwell. Turns out he was good enough to play for Borussia Dortmund and win a Champions League and get an assist, by the way, in the Champions League final. Of course, Lambert went on to become a coach. That might be how you know him from. But it was just a cool little story that made me really happy, kind of made my day better. So I wanted to share it with you and lament the fact that we seem to be missing coaches and managers and directors that are willing to give players the opportunity to do this, to trust their scouting eye and take a swing on this and instead go for the safe option. And that's how Raheem Sterling ends up playing. I'm not saying Raheem Sterling's bad at all. I think he's a good player. But there's certain players that they'd rather bring in Raheem Sterling than give some young winger a chance because it's the safer option. Right? And that's just the only example I could think of. Don't take that as bashing or any the wrong way, right? But you understand the sort of thing I'm saying, right?